hanging out with Yvette over there.
Having the best time.
Yes, I'm sure. Okay, let me check the time. I've lost my ability to keep track. Okay, I think we're good. All right, everybody. Thank you. Now, our next guest is Shayla Redmond. Shayla Redmond is a multifaceted mechanical engineer with a master's in systems engineering. It's all engineers so far, focusing on space systems. With over a decade of experience producing educational content on social media, Shayla is a STEM educator, app developer, visual artist, animator, and dedicated mom of 3 curious daughters. She passionately uplifts youth through mentorship, curriculum development, and advocacy. I'm trying to do two things at once. Her notable contributions include serving as a science educator at the Museum of Aviation, a NASA Solar System ambassador, and a mentor with the UN's Space for Women program. Shayla has supported initiatives for the U.S. White House National Space Council and Indigenous Equity, earning recognition such as STEM Success Summit's Artist of the Year Award. Shayla's inspiring work and charisma empower the next generation of diverse leaders and innovators. Welcome to Roger That, Shayla Redmond. We are very excited to hear from you today.
Thank you so much. You can hear me clearly. Just want to do a
Yes.
quick sound. All right. Yeah, so thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here. I'm definitely passionate about education, and the engineering side of it is a big part of why I love education and sharing with the community. So my topics are very broad, and I'm excited to see what people can gain from this presentation. Okay. So when I want to start out, there's going to be three basic areas of kind of sharing when you're talking about space topics or any complex topics, which is storytelling, education, and innovation. And starting out with storytelling, it's good to know a little bit about the person that's telling the story. So you get a little bit of my personality in this slide, of course. So when I was younger, I was super excited about exploration and dinosaurs. I wanted to be a dinosaur bones and figure out, discover like what was going on during that time. As I've gotten older, I wanted to start discovering artifacts and be a Tomb Raider because I was a big gamer when I was younger. So it's always the consistent thing is exploration and discovery. And then eventually, when I got to high school and we started to trying to decide our major, it was marine biology. And then it kind of grew into the astronomy, like the deep sea, the deep oceans that have yet been discovered, and the unknown. And it kind of went into the space and the unknown and what's going on in space and astronomy. And I landed, pun intended, on airplanes. So I liked airplanes. I became an aerospace engineer. I still have a fascination with space. So it was airplanes and rockets. A goal is to eventually hopefully go to experience that as in I get a little bit of microgravity experience, but in space, you never know what the future can hold. So that's kind of my journey on to this to to being excited about sharing it. So through the years, as I've gone through the different phases of being interested in the different sciences, I also like to share with other people and see what they're interested in. So that's been very fun. Which leads me into the whole solar system ambassador and becoming an NASA solar system ambassador. So the passion for discovery and problem solving, naturally led me to science communication. No matter where I lived, every time I moved, I always found a science center. I volunteered at every single science center that you can, whether it was Augusta, I was working at Fort Discovery between college years when that existed. And of course, when I came to Warner Robins, I started doing the Museum of Aviation, just volunteering, and eventually started being an instructor. And then the story is when a young lady was a part of Solar System Ambassadors, and she was explaining about the current NASA missions, and she did it so eloquently. It's also, and she wasn't necessarily an expert in the field of what was going on with NASA, but she had the resources to provide people information so they can get the information they need to get more information about what's going on, the current NASA missions, and get the community excited about what's going on in NASA and from the past, what they want to do in the future and present times. So really, my education background, my love to teach and inspire others, I was like, oh yes, this is something for me to do. Um, a volunteer basis, of course, but it's a passion of mine. So anytime I share any type of NASA events. We get training on it. And it helps kind of hone our skill as being a science communicator. And not just NASA, you have other private companies that are dealings with space, and then in any type of specific topics that kind of go along with that, like physics or aerospace. It all kind of plays a part, and it helps us become better communicators, even like I said, on even complex topics. So that's kind of how I became a solar system ambassador. Before I get into some ways of sharing complex topics, there are challenges when you're sharing science topics or anything that would be considered challenging. So no one person is an expert in all fields of science. Anytime you look at an airplane or you look at a rocket or you're looking at someone launching into space, there's a team of people that have worked together to get rockets off the ground. You just heard the presentation before talking about Voyager. There is a team of people that kind of made that happen, that helped that work, that had that work together. So even currently, kind of relating it to my day-to-day job as an engineer, we work on different facets of an airplane. I might have the wing, someone else will have the body, someone else will have the nose. And then within that, you have software team, and then you have other structural integrity teams. So with all that, there's experts in their fields, and you're not necessarily expected to be the expert. The issue with that, with sometimes when you're explaining topics on a broad scale, even as a solar system ambassador, and I'm talking about NASA missions, is I am making sure that I'm going back to the source document or source research or the source data to kind of bring the customer or the person or the public to the source data so they can get the information that they need. And kind of goes into the referencing experts that know what they're talking about. I would say I'm pretty well versed in the aerospace field, physics field. But if you start going a little bit of computer science, I'm going to find an expert for that field. And going into when you're just explaining things, if you are a physicist, but you're not a biologist, maybe you should probably find someone that's well versed in that. So going into the curse of knowledge and the solution of the curse of knowledge. The curse of knowledge is when you're explaining something to someone, whether it's high level or even in something that you believe that would be common sense or something that is easily grasped, you yourself, sometimes you have to put yourself in that and the person that's listening to you, the audience. One thing I really love, this one thing that I've watched when they explain different topics for different ages. You got 5-year-olds, you have middle schoolers, you have professionals, and then and beyond. I really like how they break that down, and that's really what's something that I try to continue to hone in and also share with teachers, educators, informal educators to share those topics in that way. So we try to make sure that we don't have the curse of knowledge and we can put ourselves in other people's shoes as we're sharing information. So I wanted to share this. Geology. Let's explore. Let's take this rock, for example. Do you think this rock looks similar to the rocks on the moon and Mars? Let's take a closer look at more rocks on our planet. So, what could this be? Well, there's an expert that can explain a little bit more.
Now, sometimes you might have more lava flowing than others, and so the lava flow will want to rise. The surface will get inflated. So sometimes that causes the top surface of the lava flow to break. And those places where it pushes up and breaks are tumuli.
Tumulus. Could that be on the moon and Mars? Let's go take a closer look. So, to take a closer look at rocks, geologist needs safety first. Your goggles, rock hammer, and gloves. So we'll put our gloves on. We'll try to break open maybe some rocks. That's really dense, and I need a corner to help break it open. So try to break open off a corner. Whew. Nope, that's not a good rock. And sometimes if it looks like it's a good rock, you still have to go and see if you can find better ones.
Okay, so there, that was a good rock to break open. As you can see, inside, some weathering, but you see some fresh rock inside, so that means the liquid or the water didn't get to this part of the rock that much.
Oftentimes, when you have rocks exposed to the surface and to the elements, you get a lot of weathering products that form. They're clays and they're these iron oxides. You can think of it like crust, like what crust is on your bicycle, for example. And so we want to break open the rock to see how it actually looks on the inside before all that happened, before all those changes occurred. That's the freshest surface we can get. They can tell us a lot about the chemistry of formation, and the mineralogy reveals to us, for example, how quickly those minerals or how slowly they crystallized.
So I wanted to share that because it's a science topic. I am not well versed in geology, but I did take a geology course. And what we're talking about, if we were to go to the moon or Mars to go explore, that is that's one of the important things that we're going to be looking at. We're going to look at the terrain, the foundation. So they're going to need some experts in that field to do those things. And we want to share education with the next generations so they can be well versed in that field as well. And my form of storytelling is more I call it edutainment. I like to kind of bring people in. I like to start the story off and then kind of bring the experts in. I might do a surface level kind of talk about a topic like I did with the rock. I learned that from both those experts there. And then I'll go ahead and bring them in so they can be more detailed on any type of subject. And that is just one technique or one way to kind of share something as complex as planetary science or planetary geology as you're exploring other planets in the universe, and also how it relates to understanding the world around us and our own planet. So as we go from the storytelling, now we want to bring the storytelling into the education, meaning we want to bring the storytelling into the classroom. We want to make sure that it's in a way that teachers can bring it in the classroom, share it with their students, because that is one of the best ways to kind of disseminate through the generations. You talk to the parents, the teachers, any type of organization that works with the youth. You really want to disseminate that and hone that skill. And one of the studies is a lot of the younger kids will stay in the STEM field up and through middle school, and then kind of they break off through high school and then kind of go their own way. So then how do we hone that skill? How do we share science so that they can be something that they love and want to take and be a part of and contribute to? And I do think it's the way you tell the story. It's how you engage them. And again, I'm going to say later, it's an engaging with the community, engaging with the youth, engaging with the young people, but it is still a form of education. You're still learning. So one of the ways that I have engaged with youth and education and teachers, in some of the pictures you can see, it's a crowd of people. We have a board up and we're talking about, there's a community called International Institute of Astronomical Sciences where I've done my microgravity research with. So with that, any type of research that I do, science research, I'll bring it back to the public at events or conferences like the ones you see in the picture. I also was, it's a group called Project Blossom where we were really focused on noctilucent clouds and the research of noctilucent clouds and why are they significant? Because they have increased over the years, which means that our atmosphere is changing. We don't know why our atmosphere is changing. We don't know, like we have some theories of why our atmosphere is changing, but hard facts, and we can get hard facts from the data from collecting information from those clouds and doing the research. So what I was a part of to help support that and help young people, high school students, to do a contest, and so they can also be a part of a microgravity flight with the International Institute of Astronomical Sciences. And I also thought it was important to talk about the engineering design process. So again, just it's all interconnected, and that's problem solving. Engineers, there's so many different type of engineers. A NASA engineer that works on the rovers on the Mars is different from an engineer that that works on airplanes. But the problem solving is still the same, where we get a set of information and we have to figure out how to best use what we have. And then of course I like to collaborate. a lot. So there was a young lady who did activity books. The picture in there is a teacher, so I gave her some books that she could share with her class. But I collaborated with a woman who did activity books for her son. He has, I believe he was like autistic, and she had is sensory very, and I think that's very important to consider too. We have to consider all different types of learning. I'm as an advocate, if you're an audio learner, visual learner, if sensory is something sensitive, I believe anybody can learn anything no matter what disadvantage that they have. It's just we have to provide the tools. And so I really was excited to work with her, and we created these activity books, and we was able to sell some to help her business, and I was able to give some away to teachers so they can give it into kids in their classroom. So again, another medium, another tool to share science and to share different topics with different age groups. Which leads me into I'll say the research that I am currently doing, the main research, which is vection. Vection is the illusion of a sensation of self motion. Some of you may have heard this before, some of you may have never heard this, but so imagine yourself, I'll start on a smaller scale. If you're in your car and you're sitting by a train and there's no train moving in, and then all of a sudden the train just starts going, but your car's off. You might jump or jolt a bit to say, wait, did I know the car's off? But you're like, oh crap, I wasn't moving. It was just the sensation of the train moving in because of how big it is and how your visuals is perceived it. So you felt a sensation of movement. Another one I think could probably be more experienced with by more people, and you probably people can now you have a name to put to it. If you're sitting in your car and you're parked and the car in front of you that's parked in front of you starts to back out of its parking space, your car is off. And I've heard some people say this, they step on their brake because they think they're backing out. And they're like, wait, I didn't move. And again, that's the sensation of self-motion, and it's due to your visual. And your visual sensation can be set off by auditory. It can be set off, of course, by visual and sensory. So that is a research that I've been doing. And the reason it's important, the practical reason and it's important that caught my eye is because astronauts in space, if they're in space, of course, the vestibular system is messed with, especially when you're free falling or you're in microgravity. And as your vestibular system is moving, and then you're on this body spaceship, and then there's things moving by, or the earth or something's moving past you if you're passing any type of larger objects. So then you can get disoriented, and they've had some studies of being disoriented in space, but then if you're disoriented, you have to learn how to get back to where so you know where you are in your spaceship or in the International Space Station. This is related to hypoxia. So pilots go through this training all the time when they are in an environment where they have to experience hypoxia so that they know what it feels like, so they know what the onset is like, and so that they can correct it. So vection, from the research that I started doing, I was saying, oh, if there's a way to do the same thing in this case of vection, so they can do this, recognize the sensation of I am disoriented. How do I correct it? And that's still kind of an ongoing thing. But just still learning more about it, getting more data points about it. And another reason it's even more important because we have more people in commercial space flight. We have more people that are going to be experiencing vection on a whole nother scale. So I really like this research. I really think it's really important. And again, I want to share with the community. I want to go into the classroom. I know some years back when I was saying vection, it shows up as misspelled on certain areas. And I'm like, oh, this is a real word. How does Word not know about this? But it's still fairly, in the sense of science and research, it's still considered fairly new. So it's something that I'm glad I'm start taking part of, and just having the confidence to regain situational awareness. That's the practical importance of doing the research on vection. So my research, to share a little bit about my research and what I've done so far, and again, this is an ongoing research. And it still kind of plays into this part of I'm forever an educator. How do I do this research in a way that I know that I'm going to take it to people and to the public and go back to the classroom? And I know that I want other input from people that maybe have different backgrounds and understanding of this particular science um, information. So my paper right now is recognizing cognitive change. I did it on a full scale, and the research consists of the parabolic flights are 20 seconds for every parabolic flight. I think one flight that I was on, we did like 13 parabolic flights. And it was like 20 seconds, you're floating, you're not floating, you're floating, you're 0G, negative G, you're just all the G's. And the goal, what I wanted to do was do more of a task saturation, logical, see how does your brain react to your vestibular system being messed with, and do you feel any type of disorientation? So uh, I thought it was very simple. You do math and you race. And it was a little math game I had on my phone. So anytime we went into the 20-second microgravity, I made sure I was racing for those 20 seconds and I was doing math problems, and very simple arithmetic math problems. And of course, you would get a baseline just like they do in hypoxia. And then you do it in microgravity and you see what the difference, if there is a difference. And then you also consider other outside factors as you're doing the research. I thought this was important to put up here because again, I am still learning and I'm still researching, but these are people, the Dr. Robert Allison and some another expert have done some of the research, and it's important if you're interested in reading the paper, of course I can share that for what I have so far, but this helped me hone in how I'm going to do my research, how I'm going to do my experiment, and how I'm going to do it in the future. So that is how I build on the science that has already been done and how I can make it in a way interesting for the public. So the reason another thing that I did with this, it was more of a task saturation. I was like, oh, I'm going to go in my pocket, take the chapstick out and put it on my lips. Of course, it's a tactile, it's a task. Now, am I confused in 20 seconds? In the paper, it takes about 60 seconds for you to really be disoriented, but you can get enough information in the 20 seconds. That's what one, because I was able to speak with some of the scientists that have done the research. So I was still wanted to do that task. And I thought it was fun because, lipstick and makeup is fun in space. So, I'm going to find a way to put makeup on and deal with makeup with science and do math.
We've lost your audio and I'm not sure why. Can you hear me, Shayla? We've lost your audio and I'm not sure. Oh, no, now I think we couldn't hear you while the video was playing, but we're not getting audio from the video.
Okay, I'll talk through it. Can you hear
Okay.
me? So basically,
Now we can.
okay, so I'll just talk through it. I was ready for this. I knew it. Technology. So, as you can see, we're not there yet. We're about to experience microgravity, and I wish you could hear it. I wanted you to hear how it sounded as we were going to reach the right before we get to the microgravity states, the 0G state. But the engine's almost like the engine's quiet. For those who've never experienced this, don't even know what this would be like. So I'm smiling because it's about to happen. I'll play a little bit and I'll stop it and talk through it since you can't hear it. But that's what's about to happen. So this particular one, I had already did my experiments, and what I'm holding in my hand, and like I was saying earlier, we had some high school students that did the research, talked about the engineering design process, and submitted for a competition to fly their experiment on one of our microgravity campaigns. And I'm holding one of the high school students' experiments so that I can make sure to get the data points that they are looking to get for this microgravity flight. And what's on my forehead, I had for my particular perfection. So brain activity is also affected when your vestibular system is affected and when you're experiencing that free fall feeling, your brain activity is affected. So we wanted to also gather that data. So that's what's happening here. So I'll play it a little bit and I'll stop and explain it. Wait, we'll go back.
What seems to be happening is when it plays, we can't hear you anymore.
Okay, that's fine. I'll fast forward it to the part.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like
Oh, very nice, very nice.
So yeah, so
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Okay. So sorry. Did you hear anything? Okay, of
Yeah,
the
we could hear a little bit. Just I think it's either that or you. We can't hear both at the same time.
got you. That's understandable. Okay, so as you saw, but you did see, eventually we did hit 0G, and you saw that eventually I was able to float the experiment in my hand. And it is I will say for those that have never experienced G's, I mean, though, if you've ever been on an airplane or even a roller coaster, you've experienced free fall if you've been on a roller coaster that's come down. So you kind of get that experience. And same thing when you're going up, and if you can feel kind of that pressure on your chest. So it's definitely a lot of fun. The best roller coaster ride that you've ever had. So that's what we did. So we did those types of flights for my research. So I was playing I was playing the math game while we were doing that. And then when we finished, I was able to do her research. And as you saw, there was a lot of different type of research that was happening on the jet. So we had spacesuit testing, we had some other liquid testing to see. We wanted to get for the different levels so they can go to the next level, and maybe even go on a more robust microgravity flight. So while vection is bad for astronauts, and astronauts don't want the vection, and we don't want civilians to have vection, the virtual reality community loves vection. They want it all the time. They want it in every aspect, in every way. So even if I'm gonna play this, even if you can't hear it, it's fine. It's still hilarious. For whatever reason, I thought that doing my technique of running was going to get me to win, but you be the judge. But I'll go ahead and play this.
Yeah.
So as you can see, even if you couldn't hear it, um, the rings around us, obviously to protect us, because people can hurt themselves, but the ocular system completely covered our eyes, so it really did feel as if we were there. And then the sensation of running, you do feel like you're running towards something and you're not stationary. So the science and the research for vection serves twofold. It helps keep people safe, and it helps make the gaming experience really, really great. So, and then the other two pictures are people also using VR, but for a more professional setting. So, I wanted to kind of also caveat, kind of going back into my solar system ambassador hat. Uh, we do a lot of stuff with the youth. We do what's in the corner right there is help with coding. It's a little car where they can code it for different colors. And it expands to other aspects. There's a little bit of code in the corner. I do dabble in a little code. I dabble in Swift coding for Apple products. I actually really enjoy creating games. So I'm kind of working on a little project on the side, but it helps me when I go to the classroom, or when I'm talking to someone, or when they want to learn more about coding. The more that I dabble or play and learn about something that I'm trying to do, I can take that and make it a more I can use it as a lesson. I can use it as a lesson plan for any type of age or youth. Um, and so I really do encourage coding and computer science for young people, and that's something that I take on when I go into developing a lesson. So even if I'm talking about Artemis, if I'm talking about a rocket, or if I'm talking about aerospace, I do find a way to incorporate computer science or software, because that is going to be the future. That is how we help the next generation prepare. Which leads me into innovation. So kind of just to recap a little bit, we've done the storytelling, what's my particular way of storytelling, my technique of storytelling, and then how do I use that storytelling to get into the classroom, which you saw, I like making videos. If I could, I would make a movie, right? So, but the innovation part is really the creative part, and I think that's the engagement of the community and the people that we know to help hone and bring about that innovation. So how do you be innovation? Get involved. Citizen science. Everybody's a scientist. Everybody can get involved. There are so many organizations that have citizen science. There's so many apps that you can get involved with research. You can come up with your own research. There's research out there. So one in the International Institute of Astronautical Sciences, as you saw in the video, there's spacesuit research where there's still research on noctilucent and clouds and developing that. And then there's courses and classes to help get you more applied astronautics to if you have your own personal research or if you have some career goals, it's there for you to utilize. And then of course, I say solar system ambassador, but really NASA, anything solar system ambassador, it deals with NASA. So NASA has over 31 citizen science opportunities for people to get involved in. You just go to their website and you can type NASA citizen science and it has all the information. And then it has information for other organizations that NASA supports. So that's more than 31 opportunities to get involved. I know that tree measuring, you have a phone and computer, you can submit data points back to NASA as you look at the height of trees. That's one of the citizen science research if that's something you're interested in. I think there's enough to find something that everybody can get involved and get interested in. And it also helps you kind of hone your skill of communicating whatever topic that you choose to do the research in. So a lot of fun. And so you saw my videos, but how do I share that with the public? I use YouTube. So I have a YouTube channel to share those videos that you saw. I have social media. And one thing that I'm more of a hands-on person. So I do science demonstrations. I go into the classroom. I do go into daycares. I've gone into daycares and I've talked to 3 and 4-year-olds about cloud study. And help their learning process develop. So I enjoy sharing in hands-on. I like doing science demonstrations. I remember when I was working at Fort Discovery between in between schooling, I would do science demonstrations about air pressure, or we do electricity where people's hair stand up, and it was really fun to get the parents to get their hair to stand up. So the kids were really excited. So they learned a lot. So that's how I choose to share with the public. I'm And as like I said before, I go to the library. That's another way. You can go to your local library and they have opportunities for events for you to share. If you're interested in science and you really don't know how to get involved and you're like, oh, I can be a citizen science with NASA and I can do this research. And oh, I can go to my local library and I can share this information. And now you have become your own science communicator, and you're also helping others people to learn and do better and become a better science communicator. The more that we have, the more robust that it will be, and the more information that will be disseminated across people and generations. So that is something that I'm obviously, as you can tell, I'm very passionate about. I've done some 3D printing when we had to do for one of my courses to come up with different tools for if we were to go back to the moon, what tools would I use to go to the moon and how would I excavate? And of course, again, learning more and more about geology. And of course, I had to wear a spacesuit for one of the courses so I can learn what does a pressurized suit feel like. I've done talks for different audio podcast opportunities. I've done that. And of course, going to conferences and networking and meeting people. So those are the ways that, like I said, I enjoy sharing my knowledge with the public. And those are the mediums that I use, that I choose to use. But I hope that I'm encouraging others to get out there and share with the public if they are interested. And the daycare, you can see the picture at the bottom. That's the daycare that I shared with some information, and I enjoy just anyway being creative. The picture right there where it looks like It's a coloring book. I was actually asked to help with the coloring book, and I just took one of my pictures and uh, made it black and white, and I edited some of it out so that kids can color it and ask the question of what is this and why is this fun? So it was for a STEM coloring book, and I was able to contribute to that. Again, still piquing the interest of young minds in all different ways. So my current projects. So I talked about what I've done in the past and things I'm currently working on along with the research. Research perfection is ongoing because everybody that is a scientist knows funding and time, you just got to find it. So while that is on the back burner, current projects I've done comics to while it looks fun, you're my the friends that know me know like you're gonna learn something. If it looks entertaining, but you're also gonna learn something about it. So for this particular comic, it was about the basis is physics and energy transfer. You won't catch it right away, but the ones that know me, they're like, oh, here's the science. I knew it was going to be learning. So obviously there's a little science fiction involved. And what I really love about that is like, for the example, the movie Martian. I remember that movie coming out and then people saying, does that really happen? Does that really happen on Mars? Can that really happen on Mars? So it caused people to do the research to figure out what's the difference between the science fiction and what's really happening. And that's what I really enjoy about doing this and playing a little bit of sci-fi when it comes to actual science. Other things that the game that I said I was working on, I've definitely helped with Silver Air Patrol, dealing with aerospace. That's the current things that I'm doing. And videos of little short snippets of complex topics. So that particular video that says Make It Happen, it is a video talking about quantum physics, but I'm relating it to the Marvel movie. I'm saying, what if this were a real thing and we had superheroes and they could do all that cool stuff and quantum entanglement was a thing? What could possibly actually happen, right? Because you're kind of dabbling into the sci-fi and into the real world, right? You want to stay within the universe. So that is one of the videos that I've done, and I do plan on doing more as time has affords me. And I really enjoy doing it. I like making videos. I like making science videos fun. Yeah. Future projects that are and as I uh, find more time, I have a comic, not comic, but a cartoon style comic that for kids that I want to present to the world one day. I'm still working on it. I want to present to the world as they're high tech and it is really focused on engineering and different engineering topics because a lot of cartoons and TV shows that are kind of sci-fi and that are maybe geared towards kids, they don't. There's some practical things that I want to incorporate that I think I can bring to the table. So that's what some future projects that I have, and of course, make it fun and entertaining. The different engineering backgrounds and problem solving ability. And of course, not just cartoons. I want to do more science demonstrations, whether it's in the public, maybe at libraries again, for organizations, and having the lesson plan to do those demonstrations, and also for classrooms, so that teachers can stay on track for whatever their criteria is for the year, but also have some hands-on opportunities if I can provide that for them in the classroom, and so the kids can get that hands-on learning for those that learn the best that way. So I do plan on, hopefully in the future, being able to do that. So to wrap this up, the takeaways that I want all the scientists here, because everyone here can be a scientist, is you have to have clarity of what you're speaking on. Clarity being, if you're not the subject matter expert, find them and then refer them. And you can talk about a service topic, but making sure that it is clear on that you know what you're speaking about, and then you know where to find who knows what they're speaking about on whatever complex topic that you choose. Engagement, definitely, like I said, the interactive science demonstrations. My form of engagement is making the videos and making the coding and doing video games and doing the research and talking about makeup or talking about gaming. Gaming is the thing that I've seen more youth come ask me questions about science. So I feel like that's where I'm going to be honing, because I want young people to be excited and say, math is not hard and science is you can do this too. So the engagement is important, and then the relatability. And the relatability being, how does this matter, because I've heard kids say, "Oh, I'm never going to use this again," or "This doesn't matter in my life." Well, technology, computer science, coding, it's going to matter for many years. And then, like I said, the vection, as more people become commercial space flight, the relatability of being part of that and knowing how to be safe or participating or contributing to the research, I think will be very important. So, and that is our presentation.
Right. Thank you very much. Let's see, maybe unshare your screen and we can take some questions. I'm Dina Weibel, so if you want to send me questions, I can take them. I know people were sending them to 3 different addresses last time, so we'll see how it goes. I've got a question to sort of start out. And this made me think when you were talking about the things like how would you explain it to a 5-year-old? How would you explain it to a high school? Like those things. In real time, when you're explaining something to somebody, how do you know whether your level, because sometimes it's too complex. How do you know when to bring it down and when sometimes it's not complex enough? So you're talking to somebody at one level and it turns out they know more than you thought. Are there examples of where you needed to do that and what is it like to adjust like that?
So I'll pick something very simple. When I've helped people with math, that's probably the best example, and then kind of having got into any type of science topic. But if I'm tutoring an adult in math and we're starting with calculus, and I'm like, all right, so I know you need help, so let's start here. But then I understand there's some basics missing as we're talking about that particular math problem. Then I might dial it back to algebra. And then I say, okay, maybe look at some other aspects and see, so we can work our way back up to the point where you need to be. So kind of going into maybe a complex topic, in the physics world, or how rockets work. If I'm talking to someone and they don't really understand how a rocket could go straight up in the fuel and booster system, like how does that work? I ask questions. Start having a conversation, and then asking the question of, oh, okay, like you understand this. Let's go to the next level. So that's usually how I've done it in real time, just kind of asking questions, and if they're willing to say that they don't know, then going from there.
That always helps.
All right.
Um, so there's a couple questions coming through now. Martin says, how do you spell her research subject, vection? I think he is spelling it correctly. He says he needs to know more.
Okay. Well, I think I can't. Is it vection?
It's
Yeah. Yes,
Vection. That's what you have on the slide.
that's
And I
what he
think
said.
Martin came in a little bit, maybe not.
Oh,
Maybe.
okay. Yeah, so I recently, actually, what I want to say, some years ago when I Googled it, there was not a lot. But now I think I Googled it recently just to see it. There's more information on vection. Still not a lot of data points, still kind of like a surface level, but there's papers out there. I referenced them in the video, and I know if you ever want to go back and look at the bibliography that I posted in with my paper, they are the ones that you can reference and you can look up and you can find more information of what they've done so far. And then I do plan on sharing more about my particular research in the future. So Googling vection and then just going back and looking at those 3 scientists that shared in the bibliography, that'll give you a good baseline.
Yeah, to me, it's fascinating, the idea of movement, especially compared with space. I know VR is something that the illusion of movement often makes people nauseated, and they'll have different adjustments to games, like you mentioned, riding roller coasters, the roller coaster ones where they try to like limit your frame of view so that you don't get sick.
Right.
And then in space where your inner ear just is not doing what it would normally do, and so your sensations of up and down are gone, which probably influences your feeling of movement. um I have a question about VR in a minute, but another question that came up is, have you found that different age groups respond better to stories versus personal anecdotes versus historical facts?
Yes. So when I volunteered at the museum and I work with second graders, when I'm able to, because there's a section where we do readings by the astronauts, we'll play it or we'll read a book that an astronaut wrote. They are more engaged and intrigued and they ask the question. When I talk to more professionals about certain topics, I still have my natural personality is playful, so I still have a playful way of sharing information, but it is on a different level and professional skills. So yes, they do receive it differently, and I do adjust to depending on who I'm telling or I'm explaining whatever topic to. So historical facts and hard data points are more professional people. They want that, and then the more playful of the imagination is more for the younger.
And then also one of the ones that was mentioned were the personal anecdotes where you're talking about your own life.
Oh, right. For the research that I've done personally.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes. So for the research that I've done, so like for example, I'm saying I'm playing a video game and I'm doing math, and but it's on a very serious and important topic. I kind of stay the same depending on no matter who I'm talking to because I noticed even a lot of the professionals, they're a lot of gamers. And they like to play it, but no, I stay the same because it still has data, the hard data points and the histories there. And even when I'm talking to younger people, and if I'm talking, oh, I'm going to do this, and my vestibular system is going to be, or the liquid in my ear from talking to a child is going to be moving around, and I'm playing a game, and I'm going to be disoriented, and I have to figure out how to get back, regain or where I'm at. If I talk to a professional, I'll say the vestibular system, and if they kind of understand that, and I'll say I'm playing a game and seeing how I get reoriented. So I might change some words, but for the most part, it's the same.
Very cool. So I mentioned I was interested in all the stuff you've done with VR, and the different intersections with VR and outer space are really interesting to me. Some of the more fun experiences I've had have been not moving so much like you, but some of the ones where they were 3D movies taken on the International Space Station, if you know the Felix and Paul ones. And then also seeing Artemis 1 launch from VR, which was fantastic. I wondered if you thought there were opportunities to use VR in space or on a parabolic flight, and whether they think you have recommendations for some of the best ways to experience, to have that idea of space communicated in a physical way through VR, like apps that you recommend or programs that you like.
So there are apps to kind of immerse, or even VR, even programs, and even some of the science centers have immersive experiences for space, launching rock, like you're getting launched into space, or you're on VR and you're stationary. Actually, I'll say this. I was in Florida for my birthday, and one of the days, and I had to have the VR system, and of course, we had a safe area to kind of move around in, so you knew not to go out that area, but you were doing planetary science. You were researching kind of like if you were on the moon, and it's not quite there to be like actual practical training, but I can see how it can go there. I think we're definitely headed in that direction. That already kind of exists. It's just kind of finding what's out there. As far as VR in microgravity or VR in space, I am not 100% sure. I do believe they have started doing some of the research or started implementing that, but there's still some safety implications of having VR and floating and your vestibular system's all. I'll be like, I don't know what's happening. But I know they're definitely headed in that direction, more on the training part, and then for people to have the experience that effect of being in space, so people every day to day that won't go to space can still have that experience, and that connecting the two. So I know that is happening, and it's out there. So, and I think it's great. I think it's good to kind of that's how you connect the people to the research and what's happening, because they're not going to go to space, but you can connect them with the immersive environment.
One of the speakers we had a few years ago had done the NASA Hera thing, which is an analog, but it's like kind of in a box at NASA. And he said that they had done a VR mission to an asteroid to give them kind of that feeling of going into space. And I thought that was kind of cool. Another question in the chat. This is from Samita. As a fellow extrovert and playful person, have you had any experience with someone not maybe taking you seriously or having to emphasize your bona fides?
Yes. Short answer, yes. I'm trying to, I kind of, when someone asks me my credentials, I'll say that. Sometimes I am met with, oh, you're an engineer? Oh, you know science? Oh, that's interesting. But it's all because I'm always like, hey, everybody. My energy level is like that. But then when they actually sit and have a conversation with me, they're excited to learn more. So yes, I've been met with it. I learned not to be, I try to push past that so that they can see, like, hey, anybody can have information, anybody can know it. And that's why I'm a real believer that if I know the information, I believe I can teach it. And I do believe if we have the right resources, anybody can learn anything and be a part of the future of science and engagement and exploration. So, yes.
Yeah, that sounds great. We literally just hit 10:50, so we are perfectly timed. Thank you so much, Shayla. This has been extremely engaging and interesting. And where can you mentioned your YouTube channel? Would you be able to put your link to your YouTube channel or other places we can find you in the chat?
I can. I also had a QR code on the video on the slide. So if as it plays, and I know it's recorded, they can always do the QR code too. But I can also put it in the chat as things go. I'll work on trying to pull it up.
This isn't a question, but it's a comment from Kin in the audience. Excellent, inspiring presentation to challenge us to communicate effectively with diverse audiences. Your humility to seek advice and perspectives from other experts is great, and which is sometimes lacking from other less knowledgeable leaders. Brava.
Oh, thank you.
That's really nice. All right. The chat's going to stay open, so I think we're going to go into little break mode again. But we will pick up at 11 o'clock with Ashley Yeager, and stay tuned.
And I'll save in the chat that I have, I'll save my YouTube and then
Okay.